While trust in the media is at an all-time low, today we're going to be talking with some of the rising stars of the industry and how they are doubling down to restore that trust with the public. I'm Jordan Winters, and this is The Chat. So today I have with me Brian Rosenthal. And he is this year's recipient of the Selden Ring Award for Investigative Journalism. So thank you so much for being here, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell me a little bit about the investigation you did with the Houston Chronicle?
Yeah, we found that the state of Texas had put in place a policy that effectively capped the percentage of students who could get special education services. These are services like tutoring and counseling and therapy, services that are really important for kids with disabilities. And that as a result of that policy, tens of thousands of kids, in fact up to 250,000 kids who should have been receiving these services did not get them and were harmed.
Wow. So I'm really interested in the process of investigative journalism. And this took over 6 months and over 1,000 interviews. And so can you tell me a little bit more about sort of your personal growth through this process?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, this was a story unlike anything I've ever worked on before. I am usually a beat reporter. I have done a fair amount of investigative stories, but I do a lot of day-to-day stories. And this was a tip that came in to us and was, the most dramatic thing I'd ever heard. The tip was that the state was systematically, secretly, and illegally hurting tens of thousands of disabled kids. And so it was something that we really wanted to really dig into in a very deep way. And so, yeah, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of interviews, a lot of records. And so as somebody who got into journalism to do work that is meaningful and can make a difference, it was very meaningful for me, and I've kind of learned how to do projects like this because you kind of have to learn it by doing it, and learned how to stay focused and stay organized and be able to execute something like this.
Absolutely. And so you've talked about how the tip was a very big point, obviously, in this investigation, but was there any other point where you knew that this was something bigger?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of moments along the way that were kind of stood out. One of which was talking to one of the creators of the policy, who was retired from state government and really candidly spoke with us and defended this policy, but confirmed that it was completely arbitrary and there was no research behind it. That was something that kind of was very reaffirming in terms of our work. And then contrasting that to the families that we met and the kids. We interviewed 400 families, and hundreds more reached out to us. And just hearing these stories about kids who were denied the help that they needed to reach their potential was a very emotional type of a reporting process. And so, as you continue to do this, me and everybody else involved with the project really felt like we had an obligation to those families to tell their stories.
Absolutely. And so, because you had so many interviews, how did you decide what to keep in and what to take out? Because I'm sure there was plenty that you wish you could have had that didn't make it in.
Yeah, that was a huge question. We kind of felt like we had so much that we couldn't really go wrong in terms of what to include and what not to include. But one thing we did want to stress was that this is a policy that affected kids across the board, and that there is no one population of kids that is affected by disability more than any other population. So we wanted to make sure we were telling stories not just in Houston, where where the newspaper is based, and not just kind of in the suburbs of Houston where a lot of our readership is, but in inner city Houston, in Laredo, on the border. We went to Frankston in deep East Texas, to Austin and to Victoria and to all these other districts. We also wanted to look at make sure that we were featuring the stories of kids of all races, of all types of disabilities, and obviously both genders as well, and just kind of make the point that this was something that affected a lot of different people. So that was something we had in mind, and we wanted to make sure we had the right mix to illustrate that. And then other than that, we hit so much stuff that we just it was not. It was just a process of kind of choosing what made it in and letting the stuff that did not make it in not be in.
Absolutely. And so, bureaucracy is not always super sexy, especially to report on it. So how do you get people to understand and care about state politics?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think with this story, the answer is by really focusing on the families and telling their stories in a really deep way. And we were lucky to have amazing support from photographers and videographers to really help us show the stories of these kids. And so we really relied on that, and we also relied on educators to tell the story, because another piece of this was the fact that these educators had basically been forced to, these are people who had gotten into the profession to help kids, and they'd been forced to do things that were harming kids. And anyway, I think focusing on real people is very important in any type of a story. And, the fact of the matter is that state government and politics affects everything that happens in that area, affects real people. And the more that you can focus on real people, the more that people will care about it. So, I think that's the most important thing.
Well, speaking of, there was a response from the government after this report came out. And so what was going through your head when you saw that this had tangible results after?
It was very gratifying to see. And it's something that, quite frankly, we expected. When we found out about this, we knew that there was, and we did the reporting to, ensure that there was no other explanations for this. There was no other, defense for this. And so we knew that if we were able to get the story out, people would realize that this was something that was not good and needed to be changed. And so, we obviously did not advocate for that, but we kind of saw it coming. And, what's been most gratifying to me is actually not the fact that this policy has been ended, but the conversation that has started and is still taking place in school districts across the state. We've really heard from parents. They're looking at, and educators as well, they're looking at not just how to make sure that all kids get the services they need in special ed, or not just that kids get into special ed and are not denied anymore, but also get all the services they need and are supported in a way that will help them reach their potential. There's not one easy answer for that, but it's a very important conversation, and so we're very glad it's happening.
Absolutely. And so what are your predictions on what happens next in this conversation? So you said the quality of service? Is that what's happening next?
Yeah, well, I think that's the next big question. There's still a lot going on this kind of central question about is the state going to take some responsibility for this policy? They have agreed to end the policy, but they have said they did nothing wrong. The federal government is conducting an investigation to look at that, and that's expected to be back. The results of that are expected to be back by June 1st. The legislature has 51 bills about special education that they're debating right now, and those conversations are going on as we speak. And then I think that this next question is going to be, once we fix this crisis of the fact that Texas has been keeping so many kids out of special ed, I think it's a real opportunity to look at special ed generally and the services that are being provided and how we can ensure that they are effective and actually helping kids. And so I'm hopeful that that conversation is going to take place and is already starting.
Absolutely. And so I hear you're going to be transitioning to the New York Times soon.
It's true, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm technically unemployed at the moment. So my last day at the Chronicle was 2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, making this transition, obviously there is still a lot on the table still, just in regards to this issue and also in regards to your investigation. So, while you're in New York, what are you going to be still kind of checking in with all of this, or how are you going to kind of relate to Texas and Texas politics from now?
Yeah, well, I'll be checking in I'll be closely following special ed. There's no doubt about it. It has a place in my heart now. I think that in terms of the story and Texas generally, the Houston Chronicle is fortunate to have a lot of really great reporters who worked on this project and are continuing to cover state government and the legislature, and they are going to be keeping a close eye on this and on many issues, as they have been doing for many years. My new job is focused on New York, and so I'm going to focus on learning as much as I can about that government in that area.
Absolutely. And so at an organization like the New York Times, what kind of impact are you going to have there, and what kind of topics or kind of visions do you have for your work there?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible opportunity because they have an amazing collection of journalists there. And when they decide to do that they were going to cover something, they were able to bring to bear resources that nobody else in the world can. And so, I mean, I'm hoping, first of all, just to learn as much as I can. I'm going to be in a room with some of the most talented people in the world, and I'm hoping to learn from them whatever I can, and then figure out what I can contribute.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for coming by. And congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much.